The rain fell heavy on the broken streets of Old Busan. It was the kind of rain that made people stay inside, the kind that washed away the dust but never the sadness. 3 years had passed since the Velith came from the stars and took Earth for themselves. 3 years of fear, hunger, and silence. Kang Do-yun stood in his small kitchen and looked at the empty pots on his stove. His grandmother had opened this noodle shop 60 years ago. She had fed workers, students, lovers, and lonely hearts. She had believed that a warm bowl of soup could fix almost anything. Do-yun was not sure he believed that anymore, but he kept cooking anyway. It was all he knew how to do. He was 34 years old now. Before the invasion, he had been a chef in the military. He had fed soldiers and dreamed of one day opening his own restaurant in Seoul. But Seoul was gone now, burned in the first wave of attacks. His family was gone too. Only the shop remained, and so Do-yun remained with it. The clock on the wall showed almost midnight. Do-yun wiped down the counter and prepared to close for the night. Only 2 customers had come today. Food was hard to find, and the Velith patrols made people afraid to walk the streets after dark. But Do-yun kept his shop open anyway. He told himself that someone might need a warm meal. The truth was that he was afraid of the silence that came when he stopped working. He was reaching for the light switch when he heard it, a small sound from the alley behind the shop. It was the sound of metal hitting the ground like someone had knocked over a container. Do-yun froze. His heart beat faster. The Velith sometimes sent soldiers into the alleys to catch humans breaking the curfew. Getting caught meant punishment. Sometimes it meant death. But then he heard another sound. It was soft, almost lost in the noise of the rain. It was the sound of someone crying. Do-yun moved slowly to the back door. He knew he should ignore it. He knew he should turn off the lights and hide in his room upstairs until morning. But his grandmother's voice seemed to speak in his mind. She had always said that turning away from someone in need was the same as hurting them yourself. He opened the door just a crack and looked outside. The alley was dark and wet. The rain made it hard to see clearly. But there, next to the waste containers, something moved. It was small, too small to be a soldier. Do-yun opened the door wider and stepped out into the rain. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. It was a child, but not a human child. Her skin was pale blue, almost gray in the darkness. She had 4 eyes, 2 large ones where human eyes would be and 2 smaller ones above them. Her body was thin, so thin that Do-yun could see her bones pushing against her skin. She was digging through the waste, looking for food. And she was crying without making any sound, the way children learn to cry when they know that noise brings danger. She was Velith. She was one of them, the enemy, the invaders, the killers. She was also starving. Do-yun stood in the rain and watched her. His mind told him to go back inside. The Velith had killed millions of humans. They had burned cities and enslaved survivors. They had taken everything from him. He owed them nothing. He owed this child nothing. But she was so small and so hungry. The child looked up and saw him. All 4 of her eyes went wide with terror. She tried to run, but she was too weak. She fell to the ground and curled into a ball, covering her head with her thin arms. She was waiting for him to hurt her. Something broke inside Do-yun's chest. He had seen that same position before, in the refugee camps after the invasion. Human children had curled up the same way, waiting for pain that sometimes came and sometimes did not. He knelt down slowly, keeping his hands where she could see them. The rain soaked through his clothes, but he did not move. He just waited. After a long moment, the child opened her eyes. She looked at him with confusion. He was not hitting her. He was not shouting. He was just there, quiet and still. Do-yun pointed to himself. Then he pointed to the shop. Then he made the motion of eating, bringing his hand to his mouth. The child did not move. She did not understand. Or maybe she understood but did not believe. So Do-yun stood up slowly and walked back to the shop. He left the door open behind him. He went to his stove and lit the fire. He took out a pot and filled it with water. He added soybean paste, tofu, green onions, and a little bit of dried fish. It was his grandmother's recipe for doenjangguk. Simple soup, poor people's food, the kind of meal that warmed you from the inside out. When the soup was ready, he poured it into a bowl. He placed the bowl on a small table near the back door, where the child could see it from the alley. Then he sat down in a chair across the room and waited. The rain kept falling. The minutes passed slowly. Do-yun began to think that the child had run away. Maybe she had found the strength to escape. Maybe she was already gone. But then a shadow appeared in the doorway. The child stood there, dripping wet, her 4 eyes fixed on the bowl of soup. She looked at Do-yun. She looked at the soup. She looked at Do-yun again. He nodded once and pointed at the bowl. She moved like a frightened animal, quick and ready to run at any moment. She grabbed the bowl with both hands and pressed herself into the corner near the door. She lifted the bowl to her lips and drank. She drank like she had not eaten in days, maybe weeks. She drank until the bowl was empty, and then she looked at it with such sadness that Do-yun felt his heart hurt again. He got up and took the bowl from her gently. She flinched but did not run. He filled it again and gave it back to her. This time she cried while she drank, real tears rolling down her blue cheeks and mixing with the soup. She made small sounds, almost like words, but in a language Do-yun did not know. When she finished the second bowl, she looked up at him. Her eyes were not just 4 circles of alien strangeness anymore. They were the eyes of a child who did not understand why someone was being kind to her. Do-yun smiled at her. It was a small smile, tired and sad but real. The child reached out with one thin hand and touched his arm, just for a second. Then she pulled back like she had done something wrong. She put the empty bowl on the floor and backed toward the door. Do-yun wanted to tell her to stay. He wanted to ask her name, her story, why she was alone. But she was already gone, disappearing into the rain and the darkness like she had never been there at all. He stood in the doorway for a long time, watching the empty alley. Then he picked up the bowl, washed it and placed it on the shelf. He did not know if she would come back. He did not know if he had made a mistake. He did not know anything except that he had fed a hungry child, and that was enough for tonight. He turned off the lights and went upstairs to sleep. Outside, the rain kept falling on the broken city, washing away the dust but never the sadness. But somewhere in that sadness, something small had changed. She came back the next night. Do-yun was cleaning the kitchen when he felt someone watching him. He looked up and saw her standing in the back doorway, half hidden in shadow. The rain had stopped, but she was still dirty, still thin, still afraid. Her 4 eyes watched him like he was a puzzle she could not solve. He did not say anything. He just went to the stove and started making soup. This time she did not wait in the alley. She stepped inside, moving slowly, ready to run. She sat in the corner near the door and pulled her knees up to her chest. She watched him cook with a look that was part fear and part wonder. When the soup was ready, Do-yun placed the bowl on the floor in front of her. He stepped back and sat in his chair. The child grabbed the bowl and drank it all without stopping. When it was empty, Do-yun refilled it. She drank that one too. Then she fell asleep right there on the floor, curled up like a cat. Do-yun found an old blanket and covered her with it. He sat in his chair and watched her sleep until morning. When the sun came up, she woke with a start. She saw him, saw the blanket, and her eyes went wide with something that might have been confusion or might have been the beginning of trust. She ran out the back door without looking back. But she came again that night, and the night after that. By the 3rd night, Do-yun had learned her name. She pointed at herself and made a sound that was somewhere between Lyra and Lyra. He pointed at himself and said Do-yun. She tried to say it, but her mouth was not made for human words. It came out as Do-yun with a click in the middle. He smiled and nodded, close enough. On the 4th night, his friend Nari came to visit. Nari was 29 years old. She had been a nurse before the invasion, and now she ran a hidden clinic in the basement of an old factory. She and Do-yun had grown up together in this neighborhood. She had known his grandmother. She was one of the few people he trusted completely. She walked into the shop through the front door and immediately froze. Lyra was sitting at one of the tables, eating soup. When she saw Nari, she dropped the spoon and backed away until she hit the wall. Nari turned to Do-yun with anger in her eyes. She grabbed his arm and pulled him into the kitchen. "Are you insane?" she whispered. "That is a Velith. Do you know what they will do to you if they find out you are hiding one of their children?" "She is not hiding," Do-yun said quietly. "She just comes for food." "They will kill you. They will burn this shop and hang your body in the street as a warning." "She is a child, Nari. She is starving." "She is the enemy." Do-yun looked at his old friend. He could see the fear in her eyes and he understood it. He felt it too. But he also felt something else, something stronger. "When we were children," he said, "during the famines, do you remember what my grandmother did? She fed anyone who came to her door. Korean, Chinese, Japanese, it did not matter. She said that hunger has no nationality." "That was different." How is it different?" Nari opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. She looked through the kitchen door at Lyra, who was still pressed against the wall, trembling. "If you get caught," Nari said finally, "I will deny that I knew anything." "I understand. But I will bring medicine tomorrow. She looks sick." That was how Nari became part of this secret too. On the fifth night, Do-yun's neighbor Bae Sunwoo came to the shop. Sunwoo was 41 years old and walked with a metal cane because he had lost his right leg in the resistance fighting 2 years ago. He was a hard man, full of anger and old pain. He had killed Velith soldiers with his own hands before he was injured. He hated them more than anyone Do-yun knew. When Sunwoo saw Lyra, his face went pale. Then it went red with rage. "What is this?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. Do-yun stood between Sunwoo and the child. "She is just eating. I can see what she is doing. I want to know why she is alive." "Because she is a child." "She is not a child. She is a monster in a small body. They all are. Do you know what her kind did to my daughter?" Do-yun knew. Everyone in the district knew. Sunwoo's daughter had been 15 when the Velith took her for questioning. She never came back. "I know what they did," Do-yun said. "And I am sorry. I will always be sorry. But this child did not do that. She is alone and hungry and afraid." Sunwoo stared at him for a long moment. His hand tightened on his cane. Do-yun could see him thinking about raising it, about bringing it down on the small blue figure cowering in the corner. But then Sunwoo closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "The Velith do not forget debts," he said quietly. "Not bad ones and not good ones. If you show kindness to one of them, they remember. They always remember. Be careful what kind of debt you are creating." He turned and walked out of the shop without another word. Do-yun did not understand what Sunwoo meant. Not then, but he remembered those words later. On the 6th night, Lyra started talking. Her Korean was broken and strange, mixed with clicks and hums from her own language, but Do-yun could understand enough. She told him that she had come to Earth with her mother 1 year ago. Her mother was a soldier, an important one, but something had gone wrong. There had been fighting among the Velith themselves, and Lyra had been separated from her mother. She had been living on the streets ever since, hiding from both humans and her own kind. "Why hiding from Velith?" Do-yun asked. Lyra touched her chest, right where her heart would be if Velith hearts were in the same place as human hearts. "I am wrong," she said. "I feel things. Velith should not feel things. They wanted to fix me, to make me empty inside. Mother said no. Mother ran, but I got lost." Do-yun did not fully understand what she meant by wrong or empty inside. But he understood that she was different from other Velith. He understood that being different had made her an outcast among her own people. "You are not wrong," he told her. You are just different. Different is not wrong. Lyra looked at him with all four eyes. Something changed in her face. It was not a smile because Velith did not smile the way humans did, but it was close. On the seventh night, Nari came with medicine and Lyra ate better than she had all week. She was still too thin, but there was color in her cheeks now. Her eyes were brighter. She moved with less fear. After she finished eating, she walked up to Do-yun. She took his hand in both of hers. Her fingers were cold and smooth, with no lines on the palms like human hands had. She looked up at him and spoke slowly, carefully, making sure each word was right. "Mother is coming," she said. Then she let go of his hand, walked out the back door, and disappeared into the night. She did not come back the next night, or the night after that. Do-yun waited by the back door each evening, soup ready on the stove. But the alley stayed empty. 3 days passed, then 4. He began to fear that something had happened to her, that she had been caught, that he would never know what became of the strange little alien who had learned to trust him. On the 5th night, he was about to give up and close the shop when he felt something change in the air. The silence came first. It was a heavy silence, the kind that presses against your ears and makes your skin cold. The insects stopped making noise. The wind stopped blowing. Even the distant sounds of the city seemed to fade away. Do-yun stood very still. His heart was beating fast, but he could not hear it. He could not hear anything at all. And then he saw her. She stood in the doorway of his shop, and she was nothing like her daughter. Lyra's mother had arrived. Do-yun had seen Velith soldiers before. They were tall and strong, with skin in shades of gray and blue, and they carried weapons that could burn through walls. They were terrifying in the way that all invaders are terrifying, but they were still just soldiers. The woman standing in his doorway was something else entirely. She was taller than any Velith he had seen, almost touching the top of the door frame. Her skin was black like coal, so dark that it seemed to swallow the light around her. She had 6 eyes instead of 4, arranged in 2 rows of 3, and they glowed with a faint purple light in the darkness. She wore no armor, just a simple black suit that covered her from neck to feet. She carried no weapons that Do-yun could see. She did not need any. Do-yun knew what she was. Everyone on Earth had heard stories about the Silence Blades. They were the Velith assassins, the elite killers who moved without sound and killed without trace. They had murdered resistance leaders on 12 different worlds. They could stop a heart with a touch or make a mind forget how to breathe. They were death wearing a body. And one of them was standing in his shop. Do-yun wanted to run. He wanted to scream. He wanted to do anything except stand there like a fool waiting to die. But his body would not move. The silence pressed down on him like a weight, holding him in place. The Silence Blade looked at him with those 6 glowing eyes. She tilted her head slightly, studying him the way a cat studies a mouse before deciding whether to eat it. Then a small voice said, "Mother, no." Lyra stepped out from behind her mother. She looked healthy now, clean and properly fed for the first time since Do-yun had met her. She was wearing new clothes, and her pale blue skin had a healthy glow. She ran across the room and stood in front of Do-yun with her arms spread wide, as if her small body could protect him from the monster in the doorway. "He is good," Lyra said in her broken Korean. "He gave me food, he was kind." The Silence Blade's eyes moved from Do-yun to her daughter. Something changed in her face just for a moment. It was not softness because Do-yun did not think a creature like her could be soft, but it was something close, something like surprise. She spoke a single word in the Velith language. It sounded like stones grinding together. Lyra shook her head and answered in the same language. Then she switched to Korean, probably so Do-yun could understand. "He did not know what I was at first, and when he knew, he still fed me. He is good." The silence in the room grew heavier. Do-yun felt like he was drowning in it. His lungs ached for air that seemed too thick to breathe. Then the Silence Blade raised one hand. Do-yun closed his eyes and waited for the end. But nothing happened. When he opened his eyes again, the silence blade had touched something on her wrist. A small device lit up with blue light. When she spoke, her words came out in Korean, translated by the machine. "You fed my child." Her voice was like the silence itself, deep and empty and cold. But she was not asking a question. She was stating a fact, the way someone might say that water is wet or that the sky is blue. "Yes," Do-yun managed to say. His own voice sounded strange to him, too loud in the impossible quiet. "You did not have to. You could have let her starve. You could have turned her over to the patrol. You could have killed her yourself. Many of your kind would have." "Yes. Why?" It was such a simple question. Do-yun had asked himself the same thing every night for a week. Why had he helped an alien child, one of the enemy, one of the invaders who had destroyed his world? "She was hungry," he said finally. "I had soup." The silence blade stared at him for a long time. Her 6 eyes did not blink. They just watched, seeing things that human eyes could never see. "That is not an answer," she said. "It is the only answer I have." More silence. Lyra was still standing between them, her small body tense with fear. Do-yun realized that she was not just protecting him. She was also afraid that her mother might do something she could not take back. The silence blade spoke again. "Among my people, there is a concept that does not translate well into your language. The closest word would be debt, but it is more than that. When someone does something for you that cannot be measured or repaid, it creates a connection, a bond. It changes the shape of the universe between you." She took a step forward. Do-yun did not move. He could not. "You fed my daughter. You did it without knowing who she was or who I am. You did it without expecting anything in return. Among the Velith, this creates a debt that is absolute, unbreakable." She was close now, close enough that Do-yun could feel the cold that came off her skin like mist off ice. Her eyes looked into his, all 6 of them focused on his face. "I have killed entire worlds, human. I have ended civilizations. I have done things that would make your sanity shatter if I described them. But I do not know how to repay kindness. My people do not practice kindness. We do not understand it." She reached out with one long black hand and touched his shoulder. Her fingers were cold, colder than anything he had ever felt. The coldness sank into his bones and made his whole body shake. "So I will ask you the question that no Velith has ever asked a human. Why did you show mercy to my child?" Do-yun thought about his grandmother. He thought about her noodle shop and her warm soup and her belief that feeding people was a kind of love. He thought about all the people she had fed over the years, strangers and enemies and friends. He thought about the way she had smiled when she placed a bowl in front of someone who needed it. "My grandmother taught me something," he said. His voice was shaking, but the words were clear. "She said that when you feed someone, you are telling them that they matter, that they deserve to exist, that they are worth the food you give them." He looked at Lyra, who was watching him with hope in her 4 eyes. "Your daughter was hungry and alone and afraid. When I looked at her, I did not see a Velith. I saw a child who needed help, so I helped her." The silence blade was quiet for a long moment. Her hand was still on his shoulder, still cold, but somehow the cold did not hurt as much now. "My name is Vorath," she said. "I am a silence blade of the 3rd Circle. I have served the Velith Empire for 40 of your years. I have never failed a mission. I have never shown weakness." She looked at Lyra. Something in her eyes changed. "Until her." Vorath pulled her hand back and stepped away. The pressure in the room eased a little. Do-yun found he could breathe again. "Lyra was born with a defect," Vorath said. "She feels empathy. She cares about the suffering of others. Among my people, this is considered a disease. We are engineered to be efficient, to be cold, to be perfect killing machines. Empathy makes us weak." She touched Lyra's head gently. The gesture was awkward, like she was not used to showing affection, but it was real. When she was young, the commanders ordered me to terminate her, to eliminate the defect before it could spread. I was supposed to kill my own daughter. Doyun felt sick, but you did not. No, I ran. For 3 years I have been running. I have killed everyone they sent after us. I have hidden on 6 different worlds. I came to Earth because it is the last place they would expect a silence blade to hide, among the conquered, among the weak. She looked at Do-yun, and for the first time he saw something human in her alien eyes. It was exhaustion. It was fear. It was the look of a mother who had done everything possible to protect her child and did not know how much longer she could keep going. But we were separated during a raid. I thought she was dead. For 3 months I thought my daughter was dead. Lyra ran to her mother and hugged her leg. Voreth placed one cold hand on her head. Then she found me. She told me about a human who fed her soup, a human who was kind when he had no reason to be kind, a human who saw a monster child and treated her like a person. Voreth looked at Doyun one last time. I do not understand you, she said. I do not understand your kindness or your mercy or your strange warm food, but I understand debt, and the debt I owe you is larger than any I have ever owed anyone. She reached into her suit and pulled out a small black stone. She pressed it into Doyun's hand. If you are ever in danger, break this stone. I will come. No matter where you are, no matter who threatens you, I will come and I will make them silent forever. Then she turned and walked toward the door. Lyra followed her, but she stopped at the doorway and looked back at Doyun. Thank you, she said in her strange clicking voice, for the soup, for everything. Then they were gone, disappearing into the night like shadows melting into darkness. Doyun stood alone in his empty shop, holding a cold black stone in his shaking hand. He did not know what he had started. He did not know what would come next. But he knew that something had changed, something bigger than himself and bigger than one bowl of soup. The universe between him and the Velith had shifted, and it could never shift back. The first death came 3 days later. Captain Urex was a Velith patrol commander who was famous in the district for his cruelty. He enjoyed hurting humans. He would stop people on the street for no reason and beat them until they could not stand. He had killed a teenager the month before, shot him in the back for running too slowly when ordered to move. They found Urex dead in his quarters, sitting in his chair like he had simply fallen asleep, but his eyes were open and filled with terror. There were no wounds on his body. His heart had just stopped, as if someone had reached inside his chest and turned it off. The Velith soldiers were confused. They did not understand how it had happened. They called it a medical problem, a sudden failure of the body. But Doyun knew. He looked at the black stone in his pocket and he knew. He had not asked for this. He had not broken the stone or called for help. Voreth had done this on her own. She had decided that the man who hurt humans in Doyun's district was a threat that needed to be removed. 2 more soldiers died the following week. Both were known for their violence against the occupied population. Both died the same way, silently, without warning, their hearts simply stopping in their chests. The Velith command grew worried. They sent investigators to the district. They questioned humans and searched buildings. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. The killer left no traces, no evidence, no clues. Nari came to Doyun one night with fear in her eyes. Something is happening, she said. The Velith are scared. I have never seen them scared before. Doyun did not tell her about Vorath. He did not tell anyone. But he could not stop thinking about it, lying awake at night, wondering what kind of force he had released into the world. On the 10th day, Vorath came back. She appeared in his shop just as she had before, materializing from the shadows like she was made of darkness itself. This time, Lyra was not with her. Doyun stood up from his chair. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to speak clearly. You killed them, he said. Yes, I did not ask you to do that. Voreth tilted her head. Her 6 eyes studied him with that alien curiosity that he was beginning to recognize. You did not have to ask. You are under my protection. Anyone who threatens you or your community threatens my debt to you. That is unacceptable. But I do not want people to die for me. It is not for you, it is for her. Doyun was confused. For Lyra. Voreth walked closer. She moved without sound, her feet making no noise on the wooden floor. When you fed my daughter, you did more than give her food. In the old language of my people, you claimed her. Among the Velith, to feed a stranger's child is to declare that the child is also yours. It is an ancient custom, older than our empire, from a time when we were not killers. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see his reflection in her dark eyes. You became Lyra's second parent the moment she accepted your soup. I am not killing for you, Kang Doyun. I am killing for my daughter's other father. Doyun felt the world tilt beneath his feet. He was not sure he understood. He was not sure he wanted to understand. I just gave her soup, he whispered. Yes, and that is everything. For the next month, the killing continued. Not every night, not every week, but often enough that the Velith occupation force became paranoid and afraid. They stopped their night patrols. They stayed in their fortified buildings. They started wearing special armor that was supposed to protect their hearts from psychic attacks. The armor did not help. Voreth was too skilled for simple protections. Rumors spread through the human population. Some said the resistance had developed a new weapon. Others said it was a ghost, the spirit of Earth itself rising up against the invaders. A few people whispered about a human who had done something impossible, who had somehow turned one of the Velith against her own kind. Doyun kept his head down and kept cooking soup. Lyra started visiting again. She would come in the evenings before the darkness fell and help Doyun in the kitchen. She learned to chop vegetables and stir pots. She learned the names of spices in Korean. She was still learning what it meant to be a person instead of a monster. One evening, while they were cooking together, she asked him a question. Why do humans make art? Do-yun was surprised. He thought about it for a moment before answering. Because it makes us feel things. It helps us understand the world and ourselves. It connects us to each other. Lyra nodded slowly, processing this information. Velith do not make art. We do not see the purpose. But I look at the pictures in human books and I feel something. I do not know what to call it. Maybe it is wonder, or joy, or sadness. Art can make you feel all kinds of things. Lyra looked at him with her 4 strange eyes. My people think that feelings are weakness, but when I feel things I do not feel weak. I feel more real. Doyun smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. That is because feelings are not weakness. They are what make us alive. From that day on, Doyun started teaching Lyra about humanity. He told her old Korean folk tales about tigers and clever children. He showed her pictures of mountains and oceans and cities that no longer existed. He played her music on an old radio that still worked, and she listened with all 4 eyes closed, swaying slightly to the rhythm. She was changing. Day by day, she was becoming something new. Not quite Velith and not quite human, but something in between. Something that had never existed before. Nari noticed it too. She came to the shop more often now, bringing medicine and food and her careful medical knowledge. She examined Lyra and ran tests with equipment she had salvaged from the old hospital. Her brain patterns are different, Nari told Do-yun one night when Lyra was asleep upstairs. Different from other Velith we have studied. The parts of her brain that control empathy and emotion are more developed. It is like she is evolving. Evolving into what? I do not know. Maybe into something better. Maybe the Velith are not supposed to be monsters. Maybe children like Lyra are what they are supposed to become. It was a strange thought. The idea that the enemy could change, could become something different, something that could feel and connect and create instead of just destroy. But strange did not mean impossible. Then, on a cold night at the end of the month, Voreth came to the shop with news. "They are sending hunters," she said. Her voice was as cold as ever, but Do-yun had learned to hear the worry underneath it. "5 silence blades. They know I am here. They are coming to kill me and take Lyra back to be fixed." Do-yun felt his blood go cold. "What will you do?" "I will fight them. I will probably die, but I will give you and Lyra time to escape." "No." Voreth looked at him with something like confusion. "No. You cannot just die. Lyra needs you. She needs her mother. She has you now. You are her family too. You will protect her. That is not enough. She needs both of us." Voreth was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, less like stone and more like something that could break. "I do not understand you, Kang Do-yun. I have lived for many years. I have killed many people. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, but I have never met anyone like you." She stepped closer and looked into his eyes. "You are weak by every measure my people use. You cannot fight. You cannot run. You have no weapons, no army, no power, but you stand in front of death and say no. Where does that courage come from?" Do-yun thought about his grandmother again. He thought about her small hands and her warm smile, and the way she had stood up to soldiers and criminals and cruel landlords all her life, armed with nothing but a ladle and the certainty that she was right. "My grandmother used to say that courage is not about being strong. It is about knowing what matters and refusing to let go of it." Voreth was silent. Then she did something that Do-yun had never seen a Velith do before. She smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, just a slight curving of her dark lips. But it was real, and it was beautiful in its own alien way. "You humans," she said, "you are so small, so fragile, so easily broken. But there is something inside you that we do not have, something that makes you stronger than you should be." She put her cold hand on his shoulder. "When the hunters come, I will fight, but I will not fight to die. I will fight to live, because you asked me to, because my daughter's other father believes that I should." She turned and walked toward the door. "Prepare food," she said over her shoulder. "I do not know why, but I think it will be important." Then she was gone, leaving Do-yun alone with his thoughts and his pots and his grandmother's recipes. The hunters were coming, death was coming, everything was about to change. But Do-yun was not afraid. He was too busy thinking about soup. The hunters arrived on a night when the stars were hidden by clouds and the city was dark and quiet. There were 5 of them, just as Voreth had said. 5 silence blades, the most deadly killers in the galaxy, sent to eliminate 1 traitor and 1 defective child. They moved through the streets like shadows, making no sound, leaving no trace. They were death itself, walking on 2 legs. Voreth was waiting for them outside the noodle shop. She stood alone in the middle of the empty street, her black skin blending with the darkness, her 6 eyes glowing with purple light. The lead hunter stopped 20 feet away from her. He was tall even for a Velith, with scars on his face and arms that spoke of many battles. He looked at Voreth with cold eyes that showed no emotion. "Voreth of the 3rd Circle," he said. His voice was translated by a device on his wrist. "You have betrayed the Empire. You have protected a defective. You have killed your own kind. The sentence is death." Voreth did not move. "I have done all of those things, but I will not let you take my daughter. We are 5, you are 1. The outcome is certain. Perhaps, but you will not survive the fight." The hunter made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You think you can kill us all? I think I can kill enough of you to make this victory taste like ash." For a moment nothing moved. The 2 sides faced each other in the darkness, ready for violence, ready for death. Then a light came on in the noodle shop. The hunters turned to look. The door of the shop was opening, and standing in the doorway holding a steaming pot of soup was Kang Do-yun. "Good evening," he said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "It is cold tonight. You must have traveled far. Would you like something to eat?" The lead hunter stared at him with complete confusion. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to run or hide or beg for mercy. They were not supposed to offer food to their executioners. "What is this?" the hunter demanded. Voreth also looked confused. "Do-yun, what are you doing? Go inside, take Lyra and run." But Do-yun did not run. He walked out of the shop, carrying the pot carefully to avoid spilling. He set it down on a small table that he had placed in the street earlier that night. Then he went back inside and brought out bowls, spoons, and a ladle. "My grandmother opened this shop 60 years ago," he said as he worked. "She fed everyone who came to her door. Workers, students, soldiers, criminals. She believed that a hot meal could solve most problems." He began ladling soup into the bowls. The smell of soybean paste and vegetables filled the cold air. She also believed that enemies are just friends you have not fed yet. The lead hunter took a step forward. "Human, you are interfering with an execution. Move aside or you will die with the traitor." Do-yun looked up at him. He was shorter than the Velith by more than a foot. He was unarmed, unarmored, completely helpless by any standard of power. But his eyes were steady and his hands did not shake. "In my culture," he said, "offering food to a guest is sacred. Refusing food from a host is a deep insult. I do not know if your culture has similar customs, but I think it might." Voreth's eyes widened. She understood what Do-yun was doing. Among the Velith, food was power. It was survival. Offering food to someone was an act of submission or an act of alliance. Accepting food created obligation. Refusing food was a declaration of hostility so deep that it could start wars. Do-yun had weaponized hospitality. The lead hunter hesitated. He could see the trap, but he did not know how to escape it. If he refused the food, he would be declaring that the human was not worth acknowledging, which would weaken his authority in front of his team. If he accepted the food, he would be creating a debt, however small, to this strange human who stood in front of death without fear. One of the younger hunters stepped forward. She was small for a silence blade, barely older than Lyra in Velith years. Her eyes were uncertain, troubled. "Captain," she said quietly, "the custom." "I know the custom," the lead hunter snapped. "This changes nothing." But the young hunter was not listening. She was looking at the soup. She was looking at Do-yun. She was looking at this human who had done something no one had ever done before. She walked forward and picked up a bowl. "What are you doing?" the lead hunter demanded. "I am hungry," she said. "I have been traveling for 6 days. I am tired and cold and hungry, and this human is offering food." She lifted the bowl to her lips and drank. For a moment nothing happened. Then another hunter stepped forward. He was older, with the look of someone who had seen too much death. He took a bowl without speaking and drank. Then a third. The lead hunter watched his team fall apart around him. He watched centuries of training and conditioning crumble in the face of warm soup and human kindness. He watched everything he believed about humans and Velith, and the order of the universe dissolve like salt in water. "You do not understand what you are doing," he said to Do-yun. "Maybe not," Do-yun admitted. "But I understand that you came here to kill a mother and her child. I understand that you followed orders without asking if those orders were right. I understand that you have probably never stopped to wonder if there might be another way." He offered a bowl to the lead hunter. "My grandmother would say that the worst kind of prison is the one you build in your own mind. The one made of rules that you never question, duties that you never challenge, hatred that you never examine." The lead hunter did not take the bowl, but he did not walk away either. Voreth stepped forward. She stood beside Do-yun, not as a killer ready to fight, but as something else, something she did not have a name for yet. "I was like you once," she said to the hunters. "I followed orders. I killed without asking why. I believed that feeling nothing was the same as being strong." She looked at Lyra, who had appeared in the doorway of the shop, watching with wide eyes. "Then I had a daughter who taught me that feeling is not weakness, and I met a human who taught me that kindness is not stupidity. They showed me that everything I believed was a lie." She turned to the young hunter who had drunk first. "Your hands shook before you killed your last target, did they not? You dreamed of their face afterward. You wondered if they had family, if they had children, if they were truly guilty of the crimes they were accused of." The young hunter's eyes went wide. "How did you know?" "Because I was once where you are now, on the edge of becoming something different, something better." Voreth touched her own chest. "You feel it too, do you not? The change, the awakening, the part of you that is tired of being empty." Silence fell over the street. The hunters looked at each other with uncertain eyes. The lead hunter looked at his team, at Voreth, at Do-yun, at the small noodle shop that had somehow become the most dangerous place in the galaxy. "If we do not complete our mission," he said slowly, "we will be marked as traitors. We will be hunted as you were hunted." "Yes," Voreth said, "you will lose everything, your rank, your status, your purpose. You will become outcasts." She smiled that small, strange smile. "But you will also become free." The lead hunter stood very still for a long time. His hands were shaking slightly, the way Voreth had described. He was fighting a battle inside himself, a battle between what he had been taught and what he was beginning to feel. Then slowly, he reached out and took the bowl from Do-yun's hands. He drank. When he lowered the bowl, there were tears in his eyes. Real tears rolling down his gray cheeks, the first he had cried in decades. "We will not report finding you," he said to Voreth. "As far as the Empire knows, you died fighting. We killed you and burned the body." He looked at Do-yun. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met or the most foolish. Perhaps both." Do-yun smiled. "My grandmother would say that there is not much difference." The hunters left that night, disappearing into the darkness as silently as they had come. They did not look back. They did not need to. Something had changed in them, something that could not be undone. 6 months later, Do-yun's noodle shop had become legendary. Word had spread through underground networks, both human and Velith. There was a place in Old Busan where enemies could sit at the same table, where a human fed anyone who was hungry, where a silence blade protected anyone who came in peace. Resistance fighters came to share information. Velith defectors came to learn about the strange human concept of mercy. Soldiers who had lost their faith came to find something new to believe in. They all ate soup. Nari ran a proper clinic now, in the building next door. She treated humans and Velith alike, healing bodies that had been taught to hate each other. She was training new doctors, including 2 young Velith who had decided that saving lives was better than taking them. Sunwoo came by sometimes. He still hated the Velith, but he had learned to hate them a little less. He told stories about the old days before the invasion, and the young Velith listened with wide eyes, learning about a world they had been told was savage and meaningless. Lyra helped in the kitchen. She was taller now, healthier, happier. She had learned to smile in the human way, and it lit up her whole face. She told jokes and drew pictures and asked questions about everything. She was becoming the bridge between 2 worlds, the living proof that change was possible. Voreth stood by the door. She never sat, never relaxed completely. Her 6 eyes watched everything, ready to kill anyone who threatened her family, but she did not have to kill often anymore. Most people who came to the shop came in peace. One evening, as the sun was setting, a young Velith soldier appeared at the door. He was thin and scared, with the look of someone who had been running for a long time. He was unarmed, alone, and shaking with fear. Do-yun looked up from his cooking. He wiped his hands on his apron and smiled. "Welcome," he said. "You look hungry, please sit down." The soldier looked around the shop. He saw humans and Velith eating together. He saw Nari treating a patient in the corner. He saw Lyra laughing at something Sunwoo had said. He saw Voreth watching him with those 6 careful eyes. "I do not understand," he whispered. "How is this possible?" Do-Yun brought him a bowl of soup and set it on the table. "It started with a hungry child and a bowl of soup," he said. "Everything else came after." The soldier picked up the bowl with trembling hands. He looked at Do-Yun, at the soup, at the impossible world that had grown from such a small seed. "Will it change anything?" he asked. "One shop in one ruined city, can it really change anything?" Do-Yun sat down across from him. He thought about his grandmother and her ladle. He thought about Lyra in the rain, eating soup like it was the first kindness she had ever known. He thought about Voreth and her cold hands and her small smile. He thought about all the people who had come through his door, enemies and friends, broken and healing. "My grandmother used to say that you cannot change the whole world at once. You can only change the small piece of world in front of you. And if enough people change their small pieces, one day you look up and the whole world is different." He gestured at the shop, at the people eating and talking and living together. "This is my small piece. I make soup. I feed people. I try to be kind." He smiled at the young soldier. "What you do with your small piece is up to you." Outside, the sun finished setting and the stars came out. In a noodle shop in Old Busan, humans and aliens shared a meal and talked about the future. The revolution had not started with weapons or speeches or great battles. It had started with soup. And it was only beginning.